Good morning, everybody. My name's Nancy Yamahiro. I was your check-in person today. I'm also a board member here at IMC. Warm welcome to all of you. Thank you for your practice. Thank you for being here. And a warm welcome to our guest today. For those of you that don't know, they're all from a group called GRIP, an acronym for Guiding Rage into Power, which is an intensive year-long trauma healing and accountability program serving about 500 incarcerated people each year in California state prisons. Many folks serving life sentences for serious or violent crimes. It is a model for restorative justice in the state, and I would argue around the country. In the last 10 years, more than 1,200 students have graduated from GRIP. Of those, 528, have been released and come home to their communities. Their recidivism rate is less than 1%. In other words, a success rate of 99%. I'd like to introduce Kim Gross-Moore, who is a student of IMC and the Sati Center chaplaincy program. She subsequently trained as a GRIP facilitator and then became the executive director in 2019. With the support of IMC, she led the expansion of GRIP to the correctional training facility in Soledad, where she continues to facilitate today. A strong believer in the principle, the first revolution is internal. She considers meditation and the Dharma as the foundation of her work for justice in the community. And I'll turn it over to Kim and let her introduce our other guests, and welcome.
It's okay to take off my mask, is that right, to speak, that we can? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Nancy, for the introduction, and good morning. I'm going to introduce my colleagues briefly and then say a few words. So I'm so happy to be here with a team of folks from GRIP. My boss, PJ Borey, is on the board of directors of GRIP, and he's here with us today. He's been here before. Bernard Moss is a senior facilitator with GRIP on our staff, and Chuy Cortez is a facilitator as well, facilitated for several years inside Avenal State Prison and now lives in San Francisco. And they'll have a chance to share more of their stories in a minute. But I'm just so happy to be back here. As I was driving up this morning, my daughter just started high school, and last night was the homecoming dance. And all the anticipation and flurry and nervous excitement of that. As I was driving up her, I realized, this feels like a homecoming for me to be here. It's been about at least three, maybe 4 years since GRIP was here at IMC, and we really do feel like this is a home for us. And so I first just really want to thank you all and express the gratitude that is in my heart and that we feel when we come here, because Gil and the IMC community, so many of you who have come up to visit GRIP at San Quentin or down at Soledad or elsewhere, or have just been supporters over the years, is really just wonderful. And I don't think GRIP would be where it is today without the support of this community. So much gratitude and thank you. And I feel that sort of nervous energy and excitement of homecoming as well. So just being here, and when I actually first met GRIP, learned about GRIP when Jacques Verdun, the founder, brought some folks to sit up here, and I was sitting there. And that was my first introduction to GRIP, and it was a transformative experience for me. And I was in the chaplaincy training program and got the chance to go up and visit the program in San Quentin and then train as a facilitator and then help to bring GRIP into CTF Soledad, where I still facilitate. So as Nancy said, she said everything that I was going to say about what we are and the stats. If you're interested in the data of impact, we have been quite successful in supporting folks inside the state prisons to turn their lives around and then become peacemakers in the community. And we're going to share some stories today. That's what we do best, is share stories. That's the real impact that we have. So I'm going to turn it over in a minute to my colleagues really to take it from here. And then we're hoping that we'll have a little bit of time after some story sharing to actually share an activity that we do inside the prisons that builds a sense of common humanity and empathy. It's called Struggles in a Hat, and so we might ask for a few volunteers to participate with us to do a little activity. So I think maybe one other thing I'll say before inviting my colleagues to speak is that our curriculum is grounded in a course book that Jacques Verdun, the founder, wrote, and it's called Leaving Prison Before You Get Out. And I think that's really kind of the common cause we have here with IMC, that there's an understanding that we're on a common journey, we're engaged in a common practice of freeing ourselves from whatever that prison is between our ears, right? And whether you're incarcerated or whether you're free, ostensibly geographically, and able to come to a place like IMC, there is still the kind of practice that we all are doing to learn how to free ourselves from suffering and be able to be of service, be able to open our hearts and experience true compassion and love and connection in the world. So much of what I do as a facilitator in GRIP is really about that shared journey, my own practice, my own healing work that I do and accountability work that I do in tribe, in community, inside the prison with others who are engaged in that same practice. So we consider it very much a shared and common journey. It is a program that's mindfulness-based. We bring tools and practices into the prisons, but really what I hope today will be about is an understanding and an experience of how much of the Dharma is coming out from the prisons as well. The wisdom and the experience and the living examples of transformation that we can learn from folks that have been incarcerated. So with that, I'm going to start from that end and invite Chuy to start and then make our way this way.
Good morning. I want to share with you guys how GRIP has impacted me. But before that, I'll briefly share where I was before GRIP. Before GRIP, I was 15 years incarcerated at the time, and I was in the SHU, what is known as isolation in prison, not knowing why I was angry, not knowing why I was so prone to be reactive. And when I got introduced to GRIP, I did so by a commissioner of the parole board. She says, you might want to look into some programs. She directed me on where to find these resources. And the first program I participated in 2016, I learned about anger, but it was still leaving a lot of gray areas with educating myself about myself. And in 2017, I came across GRIP. And I remember getting interviewed by the founder, Jacques, and he asked me, why do you want to be part of GRIP? And I said, well, I've done some work but there's still gray areas, and I don't understand why I'm so angry all the time, why I'm so reactive. I spent 10 years in isolation. You don't spend 10 years in isolation because you're a good person, right? And for me, what GRIP allowed me through the curriculum, it's not just curriculum, it's a guide in helping us educate ourselves about ourselves through the curriculum. And what I was able to learn about the trauma and understand how the trauma was manifesting itself in my life, which was in a dysfunctional expression. And the work through the exercises that I was able to do, I was able to learn of how powerful this trauma was. Just learning about the amygdala, the part of the brain that is always on alert. And it's like a security guard, vigilant, paranoid. So when I started learning about that, I started seeing myself in that's me. I'm very reactive. And when I started understanding where these triggers were coming from, what trauma it was connected to, then it allowed me to actually acknowledge it, make peace with it, start to make peace with it, heal, and have compassion for myself. Then it opened up the door for me to have compassion for my father, for my mother. And what it did is it replaced the anger, the resentment that I had for them with empathy and compassion, because I was able to have empathy and compassion for myself. So the work that I've been able to do in GRIP alongside other men has been very rewarding, has been something that has been life-changing. And it's not only for me, I'm witnessing these men in there have those realization moments that it's like a light turning on, right? And when that light turns on, there's accountability, there's complete ownership, and there's transformation. I'm an example of that. So I'm just so grateful and honored to be here. Thank you guys. I know I have to share the mic here, otherwise I'd like to be speaking the full time, but I can't. So with that, I thank you guys.
Okay. I need this. I think I'm out here. Yeah. I can talk in this.
Take your mic off. Take your mask down.
Okay. Hello, everybody. My name is Bernard Moss. So this is my third time here. So thank you for welcoming me back here. So my journey, I spent 28 years in prison, California State Prison. Was convicted in 1988 of crime of attempted murder. In 2002, I arrived at San Quentin and I met Jacques Verdun. And I participated in his first program called Catargio, which was at San Quentin. And I just thought it was the most silly thing in the world to sit in a room and to meditate and to just talk about your feelings and your emotions. And I would not bite in. I wasn't a buy-in for the group. But I stuck with it because he stuck with me. And some years later, 2011, we transformed over to GRIP. And I was chosen to be one of the first participants to participate in the GRIP program. And I sat in and I went through the program and I graduated. And after graduation, they came to me and they asked me to come back and facilitate. And I said, me? Like, really? Yeah. And they like, yeah. So I was like, yeah, sure, I'll try it. So I came back and I started facilitating GRIP. But the tools that I learned from the GRIP program are invaluable. We talk about one of our tools is called CETA, practicing our sensations, emotions, our thoughts, and our actions. and being able to connect and recognize those things. And it was something I never was able to do before. I was sitting here this morning, and when I was asked to guide the meditation, I immediately realized how nervous I was, right? I'm like, I'm gonna guide a meditation with people who meditate all the time. And I'm nervous. So once I started guiding the meditation and we got silent, I said, oh, I forgot so many things, right? And I'm sitting here and I'm like, well, this is a silent meditation, but I really want to say some more things, but I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to sit here and go with it, right? But yeah, thank you all for just bearing with me with that. I appreciate that. But this has taught me how to reconnect with me, right? And to be my true authentic self. We sit in a room for 52 weeks, right? Meet once a week for 2 hours for 52 weeks. And we really get to cover 4 areas of stopping our violence, developing emotional intelligence, cultivating mindfulness, and really understanding how our violence affects our community, our victims, and the survivors of our violence. And it's so, so powerful, right? And just meditating and just sitting it's one of the main tools that help us connect with our inner self and our inner being. And it brings so much peace and harmony to people who are inside a violent environment, right? So you have all of the people from different gangs and different cultures and, different races who sit in this room, but it's a room full of peace and harmony, right? And we sit there with each other for some of my class. I facilitate here on the outside now, and one of my classes is 2 hours long, and then I do a weekend class that's 8 hours long. And there's just peace and harmony throughout that day with each and every person that sits in that room. And it's powerful. And I can't stop doing this work because I sit in that room, and at the end of the course, I have men who have sat on death row for 20 years and are now on the main line of the prisons who tell me, after doing this work, I feel again. I honestly have feelings and emotions again, and I can never hurt another human being. And that is so powerful. I can never see myself not doing this work. And I can never see myself ever doing harm or hurting anyone ever again. So I just attribute that to GRIP, right? And being a part of this program. It's life-changing. And I think people like Kim and Jock that come into the institutions and they provide programs like this, and IMC for supporting people like myself and PJ and Chewie who made bad decisions in our life when we were young. And now we got an opportunity to participate in a program like this to help us go back to being our true authentic selves, the people we were truly intended to be before our lives in prison. And it's just something to be so grateful for. And now I get an opportunity to be a grandfather and a husband and a father and an uncle. And, it's something that I never imagined, and I get to make all these new friends, people that we used to sit on the yard and we used to look at each other and want to kill each other, and now we get to be best friends. And, today me and Chuy met each other for the first time personally, right? We've been on Zoom calls before, but today we first met each other personally for the first time. We drove over today from San Francisco, and we were just talking, and our stories are just so similar, and, but we wouldn't have realized that on a prison yard before GRIP, right? Because we probably would have been pent against one another, or, we wouldn't have had that opportunity to just sit down and get to know each other on a personal one-on-one basis. And we're both humans, right? So programs like GRIP help unite people into realizing their humanity before they're released from the belly of the beast, right? So I just want to thank all of you who support efforts like this and programs like this. Yes. So thank you, Abraham. Yeah. And yeah, it's just powerful. And I appreciate you all. So with that, I'm going to shut up also, and I'm just going to pass the mic over to PJ and let him take over.
Thank you, Bernard. I'm not sure what I'm going to talk about, actually. Now I think about it. I guess I have a lot of a lot of stuff like just flies through my mind during the meditation. And a lot of stuff comes up. I want to say thank you, offer a lot of gratitude to be back here again. I was here 4 years ago. I think it was my first few months out from the ICE detention center after serving 19 years in prison. I was detained by ICE, and I was there fighting my case. They were trying to deport me to a country I'd never been to before, where I have no relative, where I have no ties. And it was a very scary time, and I think I found a lot of comfort and support when I got here and balance. So my life has changed a lot since then, and COVID happened, and just the world has changed, and just really, brought me to a different direction, and I'm so happy that I'm, at least at this point, to be able to do this work again. I have to actually live it, right? I guess what I want to say is, one thing I want to share is this thing that it's in the group curriculum that I've always been a part of my life, and I was born into it, right? It's called Amor Fati, which is love your faith. And as a Buddhist practitioner, I grew up into Buddhism. So my mom are Buddhist, my dad are Buddhist. Our whole culture is Buddhist. I'm Cambodian. And so Buddhism is just not a practice that we do, but it's a way of our life. We're born into it. It's in the culture, it's in the language, it's in the mannerism, it's even in some of the food that we eat. And my mom always tells me, she always shared a story about how she survived the genocide with the Khmer Rouge and committing mass genocide. She shared about the hardships she grew up, what it was like for her as a farmer's daughter. And then, crawling through landmines for hundreds of miles, getting to the border of Thailand so that I can live, and so my brother can live, and so she can live. I was born in Thailand, so I wasn't born yet at the time, but yeah, and I think coming to the United States, resettling, feeling the hardship of living in a impoverished community, a lot of violence, a lot of gangs, experiencing school shootings, just bullying, that led me to joining gangs myself, and then getting into incarceration as one of the youngest juvenile lifers in the correctional system. I was 14 at the time. And I've gone through all this hardship, and I've always had this thing in my heart. It's like my mom always say, you can, when I say more for tea, I love your faith, she said, it always sticks to me. She said, you can always make things worse for yourself, you could make things better for yourself now, make the best of what you got, no matter what it is, or you can make it worse. And then I think about her in the refugee camp, working from sun up to sundown, starving, and then getting beaten at the same time, and having to witness the people you love get tortured and killed in front of you. I'm like, how do I love that kind of faith? It's a really hard thing to swallow until you actually live through it. And I remember, sitting in prison. I was in the SHU at one point, and I was really hot, and I was feel like I was dying because there's no air conditioning. It was summertime, I was for a concrete wall, and it was so miserable. You couldn't sleep. You couldn't I think I was sleep deprived for some point. And my cellmate, my best friend, was in the top bunk, and he was like, dude, just stay on the floor, And we tried to flood the cell, but they fixed the water, so you can't really, One other thing we used to do when it gets so hot, you flood the cell, and it cools the cell down. But then some people would flood the cell and made a mess, and so they would shut the water off. So then you can't really get cool, right? So, and I remember that's in my head, and when I went to ICE, I had the exact same experience. I was, after 19 years of incarceration. So my journey with GRIP was that I had an opportunity. I was a young man, trying to prove myself. I was really afraid, in prison, because I was one of the youngest person there, right? And I knew it. I knew I was young. I knew people, look at me a certain way. I knew I don't have like same kind of status like no one else have. So I would always try to assert myself more than the next person in front of me. And I would try to make myself bigger, scarier, that was my mentality. And it's because ideally I think that if people are afraid of me and people think that I'm not an easy person to victimize, they're going to leave me alone, right? And they're going to show me some respect. And so I lived that lifestyle for many years in prison. And one of the elders actually told me, man, you need, that's not you. Like, we can see it. Like, it's not really you. I think it shows in my upbringing from, I guess, part of my being with my mom has really made me a good person. And I never see that. And I never thought myself to be a good person until I went to a program called the Red Road Program. And actually, I was the chapel. I was working at chapel at the time. And one of the Native American practitioner invited me to a ceremony. And so he said, like, man, we started talking. He said, man, Cambodian, your guys' like indigenous way is similar to ours. Like I really wanted you to come to a ceremony, and it changed my life forever because I sat in the ceremony, and it was dark. I was in a nipi. It's called the lodge, and you can't really see nothing, right? And it's between you and the Creator, between you and Mother Earth, between you and yourself. No one dares to judge you. No one dares to see you. And it was singing this really cultural, spiritual song, and it just like really echoes through your whole body. You can feel yourself, and the hot rocks and the steam. It's almost like a sauna, but the steam, which is really like it represents the breath of Grandfather, which is supposed to cleanse you, right? And so I felt cleansed. I felt the hardship of the heat was over 100, 140 easy, and coming out of the lodge after like maybe a couple hours of being in there, I supposed to have felt tired. I was supposed to have felt drained and exhausted, but I came out of there like a new person. I felt I was reborn, and everything that I in my life that didn't make no sense all started like crashing in on me, and all the teaching my mom had taught me, all the stories she told me about her experience, about where our people come from, and her struggle all came back to me, which I have forgotten all those years because I was so deep in my own pain that I never really looked at no one else. And so when I was coming for this renewal, this moment of my life, I was really open now. I was really open to anything, because then I was so close. I had a big old wall in front of me. I was hurt so many times. I was abandoned so many times that I didn't accept anything, right? Any opportunity. And so I didn't really love my experience. I never made it better. I made it worse the whole time. And so when I was invited to do this program, through the Spet Lodge, they were like, hey, we have a Red Road program. We want you to attend with us, and we'll just do some healing. And so I joined the program, and it was strange because I was youngest. I sat there in a circle with 8 men, been in prison more than 3 decades, have done everything in their life, imaginable, and they were so vulnerable. They were sharing so deeply about their experience, and everything that they've said, I have lived through, and I feel like I can relate in so many ways. It's almost like a cycle. This is a cycle of how can you be so much older than me and still live the same cycle I have gone through. And I think what I connect at the time is not the experience, but our emotion, our feelings. I felt what you felt, and I think I can relate to you. And I remember my facilitator, and this is the moment that just totally changed my life forever and made who I am today. My facilitator shared how he lost his daughter to crime. He lost both of his daughter. And he was crying, he was shaking, he was reliving the moment, and I connected with his pain. And I think I connected with his pain because I was so open. And I've connected with his pain, and I started connected with other people in my life's pain, and I connected to the person I've harmed, and Mrs. Escov and her family. And I was ashamed, first time I felt like I did the exact same pain to someone else's that I did. To my facilitator, my friend Martin at the time who was sharing this, and it rocked me to the core, and I just was so guilty, I was so ashamed, and at that moment, I think I pledged my life to never allow anyone in my life to ever experience that again. And so I dedicated my life at that moment to the change, and I walked away from the prison yard pretty much. I walked away from the prison yard, almost started a full-scale riot because people were like, you're not, it's prison politic, you can't go by yourself, you can't do what you want to do. But I had a lot of elders who thought that if I was sincere and they cared for me enough to give me a chance, and they told me, like, we'll give you a chance. Anyone who try to harm you in this yard, we will respond accordingly. And I was allowed, to continue practicing the Native American spiritual circle ways, and then their ways were so related to mine that it allows me to find my core again, who I am as a person. And I started to see myself. I remember I'm a good person. What happened? And that journey, led me to restorative justice. I went back to school. I became a counselor, and I started doing a lot of work in the prison. And then my counselor was like, "Man, you should go to San Quentin because there's so much opportunity. Like you could grow more." And at the time they were doing like a prison realignment. They were changing the facility, we changed the process of how things are working. And I ended up going to go to San Quentin, and that's when I met Jacques. My first month. And actually I was in the program, but because I just got off the bus running, and I was like, I wanted to learn. I had this insatiable desire to learn, to grow, because I found myself for the first time. I knew who I am. I knew what I wanted to do. I knew where I wanted to go, and I just wanted to do it. And I want to get involved in everything so I can learn. I feel like if I have more knowledge, I have more tools, I can provide more services, and I can do more, right? Because I didn't know. And I think one of the Kevin Penn at the time, he was the violent prevention facilitator who was working with Jacques before. This was before we would call it GRIP. And Ken was like, "Dude, like you have a great spirit, man. I can feel it when I'm around you." He's like, "You should come to class with me, to sit with me in the class." I say, "Why would I want to do that?" He said, "Well, because we're teaching people how to be peacemaker, and we're teaching people, it's related to domestic violence, but we also want to teach people how not to do violence and how to like prevent violence." So he said, like, "I think you would be good to be one of the facilitators. So I invite you to come, just sit with me and find out." And so I came through class and I see Jacques with his hat. I kind of laughed inside of my mind because he reminded me of the guy Crocodile Dundee, and I was like, what does this guy have to offer, right? He's this white guy come over and he's, like, going to offer me some knowledge about being a peacemaker. And it was so strange because I talked to him, he talked to me. It was like the first time, like, this dude is so calming. I was like nervous, but I was like excited, and I was like just curious. But he was just like talking to me, and then he just calmed my nerve right away. He's like so welcoming. And then I sat in the circle, and I was really quiet, and I just watched Jacques the whole time and the way he taught the classes. And at that moment, I realized this is what I want to do, and that's the person I need to follow, that I need to take note from. And so Jacques started talking about the curriculum. He started teaching about GRIP and about the ways. And a lot of the stuff that when I think about GRIP, I think about a way of life. A lot of stuff that came back to me, about the amor fati. Like I remember, just sitting there and just meditating and just thinking about, man, I can't believe my life has gone from, from a kid who was bullied, who was spit on, who was pushed around, who was shot at on multiple occasions, just for being Asian, and then being different, and to a prison yard, and now I'm in a class and I'm teaching, and it's just so surreal. I'm like, this can't be right, and then I started to really think about that more in depth, and I started to meditate on it, and I just realized it was my energy. I willed it to happen. Like my mom said, like, love your faith. Make the best of what you got and put that out in the world, because you can always make it worse or you can make it better. And I think my energy was creating this environment for me, and I was able to do the work, and I was able to touch people's heart, and I was able to make so many friends. And actually, minus the harm I've created, if someone asked me, would you go back to prison and live your life all over again, I would say yes. The reason why is because I've met so many beautiful people through that journey. I would not be here with Bernard or with Kim. And I would not have met Chuy. I would not have met Jacques, and I would not have met a lot of people that I love today that I call my friends and my brothers who have gone through. And I think my life was forged through fire and hardship. And I think it was forged before me. My mom, my people. So I became very proud of who I am, who I've become. And I'm proud that I can sit with you all, be vulnerable, share deeply, and just appreciate the moment, you know. I can never do that before in my life. So I think, like, when I look back at my life and I think about my journey, I mean, I'm still stuck in immigration. I'm still dealing with the court process. But despite all that, I think there's beauty, you know. I think there's beauty in growth and beauty in going through, like they say, that the lotus flower grows very beautiful, but it grows from a very dark, muddy place. So I think GRIP, our work is beautiful. I mean, we build leaders and teachers. So far, everyone I know who graduated from GRIP, who's out now, is doing great things in the world. And I think they're doing great things because not just the tools that they got from GRIP, but because the growth and the transformation. You know, I think they have transformed their own journey, their own life. So I guess love your faith. I think that's kind of my teaching today. Amor fati. Thank you.
Maybe we can just take a minute. One of the things we do in GRIP is we put one hand on the heart and one hand on the belly, and it's a way that we hold the emotion in the room together, because we know when one person is doing the work, we all are doing the work. So thank you, PJ, for sharing your journey that we all are holding with you. And thank you, Bernard and Chuy, also for sharing your stories. Do we have time to do, how much more time? Do we have 7 minutes? Bernard, can we do
Yeah, we can do a quick
a
version.
very quick version?
Very quick.
Okay.
All right, so I'm going to pass. So can I ask for maybe 4 volunteers? There's one. Can you hold that? And this will be real quick. Anybody else like to volunteer? And one more. Thank you. So, and I give everybody a pen. So this exercise is called Struggles in a Hat. Anybody else need a pen? Okay, and what we do is, so we get people together in the room, and they don't know each other, they don't trust each other. Abraham, can you? Okay. And they don't know each other, they don't trust each other, they don't know each other, but we have to find a common bond. So we do an exercise called Struggle in a Hat. So we ask people to write down something that they're struggling with currently, and they write it on a piece of paper. So if you can write down something in your life that you're struggling with, and it can be anything, and just think for a second and write it on the piece of paper. And then just ball up that piece of paper. Hand me my hat under your chair. All right. Okay. Thank you.
And don't put your name on it.
Yeah, don't
This
put
will
your
be
name on
anonymous.
anything. So what we're going to do, we're going to drop them in the hat, and we're going to go back around, and you're going to pull it out, and you're going to read it. And we're going to ask you, if you ever struggled with that, how you dealt with that. If you've never dealt with that situation, how would you personally deal with it? By not giving advice, but just talking about how you as an individual would deal with that situation. And just use an I statement. If I was encountered with this situation, I would. And that's as simple as this exercise is. So
you're going to put your struggle in the hat, and then you're going to pick out somebody else's
you're going to pick somebody else's struggle
and speak as if it's yours.
Right. So just ball it up. You can ball it up or fold it. Yeah, there you go. And just drop it in. Thank you. And then we'll come back around and you'll pull somebody else's out. If you pull your own out, drop it back in. And we'll do it real quick. And this is a way that we kind of build a bond in our circles to let people know that we're alike, right? We're not so much different than we think we are. We've been sitting on this prison yard looking at each other, pinning each other against one another, wanting to harm each other, kill each other, stab each other. But you're just like me. You go through the same things I go through. Oh, I can trust you, right? Our cultures are somewhat the same. We come from the same place, right? We're all human. And this is a real way of building a bond within our tribes. And this is what we call our circles. We call our circles tribes. And this is one of the first steps to building that tribe and building that bond within that tribe. Yeah. So, all right. And you can, whoever would like to go first can just say your name and read the struggle that you pulled out of the hat. Thank you.
Raiders.
Yes. And that's how much I appreciate you all. I'm missing the Raider game right now. So whoever would like to go first, you can read the struggle. Who would like to go first? Okay. There you go. And you just say your name and read it out.
My name's Alan, and the card says, worrying about my health conditions. Yeah, I'm getting older, so there seems to be a lot of little things that come up, and I can imagine that they're a lot worse than they might be, and it's not only is it worrisome that they will affect the way I live and be painful, but also financially, I really get afraid that, if something's really bad enough, it could ruin me, because, it's very difficult to pay for medical care. So I actually avoid going to the doctors, and I try to manage most of what I can on my own and not worry about it too much, but it's not always easy.
Thank you. And I also struggle with that. Thank you. Good to hear. Thank you. Someone would like to read the next one? Good. All right.
Mine says saying goodbye to someone I love. So when I saw it, I wasn't really sure what it meant. Does it mean that someone broke up with you and you're ending your relationship with them, or someone you love is dying or moving away? And I guess my response would be different for whatever the situation is. But if someone I loved was dying, I would just want to let them know how much they meant to me and make sure that I told them how much I love them and what they've added to my life. Because I think it's really important to be real with people. If it was someone that was dumping me, I guess it would be done internally. I might tell them the truth depending on how safe it felt. But otherwise, I would just appreciate them in my head, and maybe even, I'm taking this course called A Year to Live, and one of the things you do is people that you have unfinished business with, you meet them in your head. They may not be alive, or you may not be able to talk to them, and you tell them what they meant to you. So to me, that was like a really amazing process, because you're able to do the healing around it without actually having to talk to the person if they're not available for you. So I guess that's what I would do.
All right, thank you. Beautiful. Want to read the next one? Right behind you.
I just retired. I'm struggling how to live the rest of my life in a way that is true to my beliefs, to make peace. If this was something that I am facing, I would drop the question to my mind and wait for it to come to me. And so I would say to myself, how can I live a life that reflects truth and integrity about my beliefs? How can I make peace?
Thank you. And then the last one.
So this says, a yearning for mothers to have a voice to make herself known to people who care about her. And there's one word I couldn't read, but I think that's the gist of it. I think for me, the key to helping people have a voice is to listen, which I've learned over the years is not as easy as it seems. To become a good listener. But I think that if you can listen deeply to somebody and respond in a way that makes them feel heard, that will give them voice and strength.
Yes.
So that's my thought.
Yes, thank you. And I appreciate that. Yeah, just being heard and appreciated is so powerful. So thank you all just for participating. I know we're running short on time, and I want to let everyone get to where they need to go. So just thank you for participating in that. And that's just one of the ways that we build community in our tribes and just show how people, that we all go through some of the same struggles in life. And hopefully some of you all can relate to those struggles and see how it relates to our lives. Thank you.
I just wanted to thank you all for being here today and for sharing and being so open with us. Really appreciate it.
Yes.
Abraham runs a group here that supports GRIP, and so I wanted to give him a chance to.
Just see me after all of this if you want to do some volunteer work around the GRIP program.
Thank you. We'll also be having a tea out in the parking lot. Set up some chairs if you'd like to sit around. I don't know what your time frame is if you're available, but we can get hot tea and take it outside, and there's chairs out here in the hall that we can take out and put in the parking lot. So thank you, everybody. Thank you for your practice.